Okay. So, yeah, it's recording. So here's all the steps. These are the auto. This is the AutoCAD data that was used to produce the 11 by 17 handout. I'm going to go through it. As you can see, actually, and if you cross-reference, give us a little credit. Cross-reference with your text. You'll notice that the numbering on the it's actually 14 stages corresponds to the numbering on the handout. So 1, draw a circle. So let's just go through this really quick. So we're going to assume that right here at 0 is where all of you are starting. So we have this is my fictitious project for City Pools, Spring 18. So as you can see, we've got a portion of the freeform curve here. We've got our 4 by 3 column grid. We've got my original 20-foot square, 20 by 20 square is right here. And any questions about that? All right. So the first step, according to the handout, would be to go to the module, to the bay that corresponds to your initial 20 by 20 square, and draw a 20-foot in diameter circle inside that square. So you're going to draw a circle inside the square. Probably the easiest way to do that is just to draw a line across any kind of symmetrical part of this thing. Just a guideline, and draw a circle and snap it out to the 20-foot line that you already made. And you'll end up with this. Okay? But the really important thing there, this is actually super critical, this is going to be a cut line. Okay? So double, triple check. If you don't remember where you laid down your the first move on when you did your initial layout, go back and check it. So get that spot on. Any questions about that? Step 2, go ahead and bisect that circle from edge to edge across your sheet. Now, when we talk about your site, we're not going to talk about this boundary. That boundary is the sheet. Your 15 and 3/8 by 9.5 inch boundary is that inner boundary. Okay? Questions about that? So when you create these lines, I'm sure I don't need to demonstrate it, but you can just go ahead, select that circle, draw a line from center out to the edge, and probably the easiest way is just grip at it, that thing out perpendicular to the edge of the sheet, and create these 2 lines. Any questions about that? Pretty straightforward. This is Montessori school stuff. This next one is a little more maybe first grade rather than Montessori school. But we're going to ask you to draw 8 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines that go from each corner to either side of your 20-foot circle and arrive at a point of tangency to that circle. It's design 2. Does everybody understand what tangency means? Who does not? Just be really honest. Does anybody not? Can I take a short break and review what tangency is? Yes? Yeah. All right, some people are saying no. I'm going to pause this. To draw these lines, I'll go ahead and erase a couple. Just go to any one of the 4 corners, draw a line. Now, watch on the screen while I press Control and right click. I can force a snap. One of the easiest ways to do it is just to go down to tangent, and this is forcing the snap. And if you go anywhere on that circle, you will get that little green circle with the line on top. That's tangency. Right click, enter. I can do it again. And sometimes if I come down here, I'll just find it. You know, there it, found it. But if you're having trouble, hold down on control, right click on the mouse, and you'll be able to just pull tangent right up, and it will only find a tangency. And just repeat that operation for all 4 corners. One thing to note, it's kind of cool doing these things. This surprised me. I'd be curious to know if it, and it made sense once I thought about it, but I hadn't thought about it. I assumed where these 2 lines crossed would be the center of the circle, but it is not. All of these points of tangency, and that would only, they would only cross on the bisection of the circle if the circle were centered on the sheet. So there's some kind of registration between the discrepancy between this line and the position of this circle from edge to edge, and same thing going in the other axis. Kind of a neat thing. I didn't expect that. I looked at that after I drew it and I went, I must have that wrong, and then I realized I didn't, and then I thought about it and I realized it couldn't be. Now the fun one. Got to make some bubbles. I'll erase all these. Underneath this is what's left of my freeform curve. And I'm going to redraw the circles which were used to form this freeform curve. So I'm just going to draw a circle, and I'm going to wait. See that little white cross right there? As I move around this thing, see all these little white crosses popping up? Those are all centers. Once I find one, I'm just going to draw it out to the edge and draw a circle. Repeat circle. Here's another one. Repeat circle. Here's another one way out here. Pull it over. These are the circles that were used to construct this. That wasn't right. Snapped on the wrong one. And if I keep going around, I can redraw them. AutoCAD will analyze that circle and allow me to reconstruct the hidden lines that were used to make the thing in the first place. There's even a little one right there. And I end up with bubbles. So that would be step 4. Any questions about that? After I get that done, I'm going to trim this, any circle which traverses the outside of my boundary. I'm just going to trim it off. I only have one. I'm going to select my boundary, trim that out, and I'm ready to go. So now I basically have almost all the information I need generated by the time I get to frame 5. Any questions so far? It's really one, the circle, the bisecting lines, the tangent lines, and the bubbles. That's what you're drawing. Everything we're doing from here on out is layer management and line management, which will help you in your laser cutting quest. So at the top of this thing, before we even got to these operations, it says, what's that? No, I want to say this on the video. If you look at it says the four datums, excuse me, right, it says in AutoCAD, open your file for city pools containing your recent plan with structural grid. Do a save as a new sequential name. We always do that, right? Right? So today's file is different from yesterday's file. Or this afternoon's file is even different from this morning's file. Why is that good? Creates redundancy. If my afternoon file gets corrupted, I can go back to my morning file, which is better than last week's file, right? Because I only lost the morning. Or yesterday, I can go back to yesterday. But if I don't do this save as, I don't have that extra little margin of safety. I know it creates a back. I know there's SVS files being saved continuously and all that. Do this. There are moments where you'll be glad you did, trust me. Make a safety copy of your line work, which I did here. I pulled it down from over here. And then here's the most important part. Create two new layers, layer, new, and create, you could name them really whatever you want. I went ahead and named them $_underbar01 cut and $_underbar02 engrave. And make the cut the current layer. That's why this came up yellow. Now, I didn't specify the color or anything like that yet for the file. All that will change depending on where you decide to get your laser cutting done. In-house here at Cal Poly, which I have to warn you guys, Hero, we highly recommend that you do this outside of the Building 28 shop. Emphatically recommend. Okay? Any questions about that? Yes, Mitchell. Why?
Why?
Because we've had some issues getting access to students down there. The safety protocols have been changing. Some of them have been changing fluidly. We haven't always been notified ahead of time. And until we get all that sorted out, I don't want you guys wasting your time. I'd rather have you invest your time where you know you can get your work done. I sent an email to Martin Mason this morning asking if the laser cutter in the shop had been in the makerspace had been fixed yet. He hasn't replied. I'll give the makerspace a call when we get done with this demo, and we'll find out. But again, we highly recommend Joe DiMolanta at Carpe Diem. We highly recommend Ivan Contreras over at SOC. Bahadur, do you have another laser cutter that you like?
Yeah.
Which one?
I have it on the card, but the business card is in the car.
Okay. If you want to get me their name, I'll put it on Canvas. It's enough to, I think, all of us that you would recommend it. So please go to a service bureau. It's the up and up. Or if the makerspace is functioning, go to the makerspace. And that's about the best we can offer. But, this is going to be a very minimal charge. This will be a very fast cut. How much did, Chance, how much did your laser cut charge go for the last one?
So I split that with Jared. It was like $15.
$15 for both of you, so it's $7.50. Yes, Hardy?
Where's the build shop?
Where's the build shop?
It's in K-Town.
What?
That's a little bit of a hike, but
You get it done.
is it free?
It's $25 for 30 minutes.
$25 for 30 minutes. That's pretty good.
How long is this cut, do you think?
We could ask Eric. This probably, once you're cutting, after you get the setup done, I can't imagine that he could probably cut 8 sheets in about 20 minutes.
Or there's another one, but it's a membership.
Right.
It's $150 per month.
But that's, you know, if you use it, that's
Yeah.
cheap. So anyway, but we can highly recommend Joe DiMolanta and Ivan, Carpe Diem and SOC. So moving on through this, I'm going to ask you guys to take everything except the circle and put it on the engrave layer so that it becomes graphic information rather than a cut through the material. That would be frame 6. Frame 7 is really easy. Frame 7 is simply trimming out this material from the inside of the circle that you don't want to engrave in something that's getting cut out. So just go ahead and, this mouse is weird, trim that out. Now this is one where I'll pull this off to the side. Frame 8, you're going to scale this thing. Because right now I've been working at 1-to-1 scale. So this is actually 50 by 85 feet. So I want to scale this down to the size of my part. So what I need to do is make this thing 15 3/8 inches by 9.5 inches. To do that, I'm going to draw a circle down here, which is 15 3/8 inches. Is that right? That's not right. No, that was right. Take it back. It was diameter. Radius, 1 foot 3 3/8. This is correct. So that's my 15 3/8. And again, everybody uses AutoCAD differently. My little way of doing this would be to make a reference scale. So I draw that circle, that's my reference. I type SC, select all the information. I'm going to select my base point. Now is the tricky part because I have to wake up. Where's my switch, Marcel? Wake up. You have to type R spacebar. And then I'm going to go from my base point to the point that I want to use. And now I can scale this down. And I can scale it right to the quadrant of that circle. Now, if I measure this, I get 15 3/8 of an inch for my length. And, God willing, the river don't rise, 9.5 inches for my outside. Okay? Now, I didn't show the relative scale on the handout because it would turn into a postage stamp. But, so you can see, there's the difference in scale right there. So, but once you do that, you can go ahead and just follow these instructions. And I wanted the engravings on the models that came out today to come out as dotted lines. And so there's 3 frames here that get you scaled properly with even down at this scale to get those lines the right size. Go ahead and follow those. They'll look fine. And then my lines didn't come out. And because Eric helped me with the laser cut, I wasn't able to troubleshoot it down in the shop. And then any questions about that? So if you just leave these as solid lines, that'll be fine too. Okay? Yes? No?
So what are the dimensions of the small one again?
The same size as your MDF. You should have these memorized by now, and it's on canvas. So the long dimension is 1 foot 3 inches and 3/8, which is 15 3/8 inches by exactly 9.5. Right? That should be hardwired into the whole process at this point, but it's always good to check. Now, here's another little moment of wakefulness. I would highly recommend that you overkill this file, and watch what I do when I overkill. I'm not going to overkill my yellow information. So I'm going to take my outside boundary. I'm also going to put that on my cut layer. All my red is on my engraved layer. Now I'm going to hide the cut. Where's my layers are over here. So here are my layers. I'm just going to go to my cut, and I'm going to freeze it. Watch what happens. All right? So now I don't have that information in the frame. Now I'm going to type overkill. Why do I do overkill?
So layers isn't cut twice?
Right. I'm going to select all my red material. I'm going to right click. It's going to give me a little warning. We're just going to get all of them. Do you usually do all of them, Hero? Even these two, ignore the...
Depends on what
Yeah.
we need them separate, and sometimes I'll need that.
Now,
But for this, I don't need it.
yeah. But I'll just do it anyway. So everybody remembers what overkill does, right? It removes all the redundant lines that are under other lines and stuff like that. So I just saved myself a lot of money with Joe Dimolanta or Ivan. After I get that done, I'll go ahead and turn my cut layer back on. Can anybody tell me why it was a good idea for me to turn my cut layer off when I did the overkill? Because some of it might have superseded, it might have just gotten rid of a cut line in favor of an engraved line. And I want to make sure that all my cut information is there. Is that clear? Okay.
Wait, the perimeter line you have to get rid of.
This?
Score line.
This?
No, the one that's the one that's the red.
Underneath?
Above it.
I could get rid of that.
You'll have to, or it's going to score it and then it's going to cut it.
Right. So I'll waste money.
Yes.
So I'm going to erase that. That's a good critique. I'll erase it and use a window and just go around the edge here. Make sure I'm only... That's weird. Let me turn my cut off again and just erase all those so I can see what I'm doing. Still a polyline. Explode. Erase. 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 And now if I turn it back on, now I've got a really clean cut file. Last but not least, so now I'm basically ready to cut. Here's exactly the file that I gave to Eric to cut. So I set two of them up. There's an option on the thing, going back to what you saw on the table there, where on two of them I added where I thought my fire stair should go. I think Hero and I would, that's a kind of option for you. I think Hero and I would both recommend, unless you've got your design really nailed down, that it would probably make more sense to not cut that fire stair because you may want to change the position and you can just, it takes 2 seconds to cut that with a knife and it just leaves your options open and you haven't really wasted any time. So the file I think that I would most recommend cutting would be the one that's here at stage 12. I'm going to go ahead and stop this now.